Just like that, here we are, folks, live again. Jig Squad during Super Week. What's going on, everybody? Mike Murphy, aka Barracuda. This is Jig Squad. For everyone who's a regular around the Jig Squad scene, talking about flow, color, and design, and why we create the stuff that we do, you're here again. I'm starting to see all the regulars pop in the chat already. But anyway, guys, we got a great show tonight. I'm super excited. I already told everyone we are branching out into my first love, which you guys know is the saltwater world. And we're going to start talking about design from that world tonight. And so a company that I'm super excited to have on and part of the Jig Squad experience. And more importantly, so these guys get to tell their story as to why this company was created, what the jig design was all about, their swim baits. It's a good chance to hear this story. And as we talk tonight, guys, there's going to be some freshwater stuff that you should be paying attention to, because there's some things that I've learned about from this company that is next level. So we're going to have probably a lot of new people in here. If you are new tonight, Jig Squad Live does live interviews with jig makers and companies from around the country that are custom designers and create amazing stuff. So we tell the story of the jig makers that the big industry doesn't want anyone to tell. And so here we are. So my guest tonight, guys, is no live bait needed. I'm super excited to have the boys in the house. We're going to get them in. It's already been too long already. Let's get them in. Jose, Brandon, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Jig Squad Live. How are you?
Good. How you doing? Doing good.
This has kind of been like a courtship I've had in my mind for like a while. I'm like, how am I gonna? I said, what am I gonna do? Who am I gonna get in when we start off the saltwater scene, and what that looks like? And I kind of thought, I laughed earlier. I said, everyone wonders, like, oh, what's this guy talking about? Does he, did he just bring them in? Does he use these guys? Yeah, of course I do. I use all this stuff. And I've been a big fan of this company, guys, for over 6 months. Evening to all. So a little roll call, guys, before we get started here. For everyone in chat array, Lumo, Lime Green, George, Jay, Bass, Michael Bradley, Fishing the 262, Dave Richardson. What's up, guys? Matt, South Jersey Fisherman, Sean, Darius, Daniel, Big Malone, Dan T, Michael. You guys, listen, I know there's a lot more in chat than just that. Rich, if I miss you tonight, guys, just if you're in chat, we'll chat a little bit, but I appreciate you all. You guys know the deal. So, but as we get started a little bit, guys, the whole reason I wanted to have you guys on tonight, and you guys know this because we talked a little bit, but for anyone in chat or if you're watching on replay, no live bait needed. NLBN was a brand that I just kind of stumbled upon. And as I stumbled upon, I started to realize, I'm like, man, I said up and down the entire East Coast, all around Florida, moving throughout the Gulf region, this is like one of the hottest bait companies out there. And I'm like, well, why is that? And I said, I got to find out. So I start doing my research and I start looking at things and getting ideas of like what things look like. And I'm like, this is next level. I'm like, just the profile, right, guys? And just what these things look like. And I'm like, this is the real deal. I'm like, I need to find out more. So I've been buying these things. I've been using some of their products since I would say summer for sure. And but I want to hear the story. So what I've been using them for and what they use them for aren't always the same things. But guys, tell us a little bit about how No Live Bait Needed, NLBN, got started and why. What was the onset of this whole thing, the NLBN revolution?
Well, I appreciate the intro. That was very generous. I'd like to touch upon the first bait that you just brought up right there, the little mullet, before we go all the way to the beginning.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, each and every bait that we came up with was for a specific reason that we needed it for, that we fished.
Okay.
So, for instance, that bait right there was made, for a specific set of bridges during the mullet run, a shadow line, a topwater fluke bait that can resemble a mullet and look very natural, and in that specific situation has turned out to be the best bait that you could really fish in that situation. So I mean, the origin starts, and I think best said is for things that we need, lures that didn't really exist for the kind of fishing that we do, for a specific purpose. And then it's really nice to see it, go across the country. The guys in Texas using them for trout, the middle of the country guys are using them for bass, all throughout Florida. even the backcountry scene, flipping them into mangroves and all that. It wasn't necessarily what it was designed for. We made a bait that we knew was going to swim right and do the right, whether it's, the paddle tails or even the fluke style little mullet. But at the end of the day, it was something that we needed that didn't exist. That's the origin to every single one of our products. And I mean, even something like the paddle tail, like how many times can you reinvent it? There's so many nuances within the paddle tail, the jig head, and the soft plastic that we made catered to our specific kind of fishing. That once again, it was just we were using plastics from all other brands for all different kinds of fishing, not necessarily what it is that we specifically needed for. Yeah. So that is like a nice way to talk about the origins. It comes down to stuff that we like to use that we needed to use
for our fishery.
Yep. Yeah.
Guys, this comment here is from one of the clown cars that comes into Jig Squad once in a while. My buddies up in Wisco, they always like to knock on me. Yeah, me and Billy Ray Cyrus, we were doing our thing as often as possible. And as you can tell, I'm working on it right now, Brian Tesh. So I'm doing everything I can to get back to it, bro. Him.
That's awesome.
So that's awesome. So it starts out, and so this is kind of like the impetus behind the company. But like we were talking about, so what was first? Okay, so we'll be able to talk about some of the products a little bit more in depth, but from the order of things, what was kind of the first thing in that line of thinking is saying we needed to create things that we didn't have. So what came first?
The thing that came first was the actual jig head. I mean, we had sketches and ideas of how we wanted the swim bait, but the jig head came first.
Okay.
There's a lot of jig heads on the market that had barbs in the back that held the baits on, but we're fishing big baits. I mean, this is the smaller 5-inch. The 8-inch is a big, heavy bait. And the majority of the jig heads, you'll cast them a few times, not even catch a fish, and
the bait
starts slipping off. I mean, you have to push it back in, carry super glue with you, super glue it, and it just became a hassle. So me and Jose went to the drawing board, like, we have to do something different. There has to be a better way.
Mm-hmm.
And when he says me and Jose, it really means him.
Yeah, he has.
All right, so Brandon, show that head, because I think that's going to be it's going to drive a lot of this discussion tonight.
Yeah.
So you guys see this? So if you're familiar with the company, Ray, you already know what this looks like. If you don't, it's a screw lock, and you know the deal with screw locks. So like South Jersey Fisherman, Matt, Brendan Brown Bait Company, you guys know, you guys are swim bait guys. You love all this, or for anyone else in chat, the screw lock. And a lot of times, like for up north and stuff, like people are putting screw locks in the little, look at the head on that one. That's beautiful. That's lime cider color, right?
Yep. Yeah. Lime cider. Yep.
That's our 1 ounce 5-inch. And,
right.
Kind of what you're talking about with the screw lock. There's nothing under the sun that hasn't been invented. So it's something that we took out of the page of the Bass guys, you know, to a certain respect, and knew to incorporate it into saltwater. When I didn't have anything to do with the screw lock, when he first came to my house with the screw lock, because we're making our own jig heads with the barbs and everything, just making our own baits that we wanted to fish. And when he came with the screw lock, and I saw the first time that he screwed a bait on and you couldn't really rip it off, I was like, all right, now
we got to do this.
Yeah, we're definitely onto something.
And now listen, guys, in chat, if you're a South Florida fisherman, if you're on the East Coast, it's a little different. But for freshwater guys, and you haven't seen the NLBN stuff before, understand something. There's a couple parts of this, right? So, so that head size is on these is to basically match up to the profile of that beginning of the swim bait, right?
Yep.
And so, I got the swim baits in front of me too, so. The reason you have that large flat head, okay, is because you're trying to match up with the head of this. Now, this is a big deal, guys, and we're going to talk about this more. So basically, classically started off as a hand pour, right? These guys were pouring their own and have moved on. And the one thing we're not doing tonight, guys, we're not interested in talking about plastisol recipes or your colorants. There's 6 gazillion people to watch on the interwebs to see all that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's some unique things about this bait. So the jig head comes first, which is the crazy part of all this. So the jig head comes first with that flat-headed profile. And the reason for that is, go ahead, guys, what type of swim baits were out on the market?
Yeah, there really wasn't nothing with a wide, fat profile. A lot of the swim baits hand poured swim baits you find, they're very narrow. They're very thin and skinny.
Right.
And in heavy current, it's if you rig them a little crooked, they'll start rolling and they'll start teeter-tottering.
Yeah, Brown Bait came up with he mentioned he said about the body roll on the baits, that because it's weighted, there's a lot of weight under the head, that it might have a lot of body roll. I think you could talk about that. I think this is one of the big things that differentiate our baits from many of the others.
Yeah, great comment and good discussion on this, because this is a highlight, right? This
that
is
one right there, a lot of weight under the head. I bet has a lot of roll on the way down.
Yeah, actually, when there's a lot
kind of the opposite.
When there's a lot of weight on the bottom of the jig head, it's going to keep the jig head keeled downwards.
Yes.
You're not going to get a lot of body roll. If the tail is a type of tail design that's outstanding and a lot of resistance, that's going to cause your bait to wobble a lot. So tail design and shape of jig head has to do with how much
body roll
body roll you have.
And for us, for our kind of fishing, we actually want to minimize body roll as much as possible.
Yep.
Being that we're fishing a lot of times in heavy current, deep water, that body roll, the second that bait gets too far one way or another on the body roll, that wants to let it catch the water and go up. So actually focusing on having the least amount of body roll as possible. When you're fishing a high current situation and that bait is tracking 4 or 5 knots of current, or even as slow as you're slow rolling it with a half-ounce head, you really want to keep that bait with as little body roll as possible, tracking as straight as you can.
True.
All right, so guys, listen. So let's add to that. So Brendan Brown, think about this, right? What is the number one thing? I mean, and this is, I know that. So Brendan Brown, you guys, Jose and Brandon, he makes his own hard baits too, hand carves them, really cool stuff. So he's really into like a lot of stuff. So Brendan, think of the smallie guys, right? Talking about the little spark shads and a little crazy profile about getting that tail kicking. Here's what I want to show you. All right, so on this bait, guys, right? Look at the volume in profile on the first half of the bait. I'm going to call that the first halfway point. Yep. But it's not just the first half of that bait. It goes to about here. So where do you think the action on that bait is going to be? It's going to be in this last little section.
Exactly.
So when people talk about like, what's the difference between baits? The whole entire point of this, the weight in a plastic swim bait like this, is to keep this lined and keeled. And there is a slight contour, which you are going to allow with some keeling with the bait, but it continues on for so long. And look at just standing there. It's not the whole first half of the bait that's moving. It's just that last little section.
Yep. Last third.
For a bait to be that fat and have a 5-inch bait like this is crazy. Because here's the part that's moving, just the tail.
Yep.
And that is, and keep in mind what was said. Heavy current in the passes or in the inlets, right? You need that to be down on the bottom, and if they're drifting bridges, right, for snook and popping it along into the lights and stuff coming up to the bridges, that's the methodology behind it. And so, like, a lot of people will sit there and say, "Oh yeah, there's lots of swim baits out there." Yeah, but how many of them have a body like that? There's none. It's literally, that's the last section of the bait right there. That's the action. And that's why it's such an interesting bait to me. At least the swim bait is, right? And guys, they have these in, I haven't fished the 8s. I fished the 5s, and then there's a 3-inch as well.
Yeah. So, that one's the killer. That one's been taken over down here. And it's very same principle of the design, very
chunky,
a very fat profile, a nice profile for the bait. Being that we're primarily snook fishing with these, those snook are sitting right on the bottom. So a lot of the times you can see where those eyes are on the snook's head. They're right on the top of their heads. Most of the time that they're looking or tracking your bait or looking at something, they're looking right overhead them, right over their heads. So that chunkier profile also stands out a little bit more, lets them know that there's a little bit more mass to that meal that they're about to have. And it gives it a different look, a different action all the way around than a thinner profile bait. And that's exactly what we're going for with the chunkier profile, and even like the plastic. Not that we're going to get into recipes or anything, but we use a softer formula than most. And we're able to get away with that, not only with the screw lock, being that we have that screw lock design that keeps that plastic buttoned, but not only were we thinking about the high current situations, but we're also thinking about non-moving water, slack tide, like a lot of guys like to call it. Slack tide is huge for us. We wanted this to be fished with a 1/2 ounce head, and the second that it hit the water and you started moving it, that tail was going to have some action and kick to it. So, we're thinking about the high current situations, and then also really focused on absolutely no moving water with the lightest possible jig head that we could fish, and still having that kicking action that you should get out of a bait. And we fish a lot of that end of the tide situation. That was really important for us. It's the reason why the tin head was born. The 1/2 ounce tin head was to be able to fish it in the lightest situation possible.
So there's the magic word, you guys. So for any of the regulars or anyone new, you should be paying attention to this for sure. So one of the things that we talk about in Jig Squad, or particularly during one of the past shows, was the presentation or the use of tin, or a mixture of tin and lead in the pouring of jig heads. And this is done basically to create the same head sized profile, but allow for a lighter presentation to be created, right?
Yep.
And it's the one thing that you don't hear a ton of people talking about. Everyone knows a little bit about it, but then when somebody talks about it, their ears, they're up.
Yep.
They're listening. Yeah. So the only thing, I shouldn't even say this because I didn't even get any of these yet, but the only tins are in the 1/2 ounce sizes right now under the 5s. Yes. So if you go on the website, guys, there are 1/2 ounce for the 5-inch baits
and
5 and 8. Yep.
Okay, and they're 1/2 ounce and they're 10. And so
it's the same 3/4 ounce mold we use.
Yes.
So we pour it out of tin. It comes like 0.55, 1/2 ounce essentially. Yeah. With that, you're able to fish this bait in a completely different situation. That super light current, slow water moving situation, and that really, it expands the range that you're able to fish it at. One of the biggest things that we wanted to do was make a bait that you could fish in every situation, from still water to in the middle of the tide when it's ripping, and be able to have an option where you could fish. And also too, just to track back, that width, that girth on the bait also acts for everything that, it works for everything that we're talking about. When you get that thinner profile bait with a bullet head, it's going to cut through the water. It's going to sink a lot faster than a wider profile bait that's displacing a lot more water, more of a blunt head, and the shape that we put to the head and everything, to be able to keep that bait tracking or even fluttering or swimming, where that same size bait and jig head would be scraping the bottom. So that girth essentially is going to get you to fish this about a size lighter than most other
1/2 ounce
baits that size.
You guys conceptually get that? Like that's a big deal. So if you're in chat or on replay, basically this would be a comparable discussion to the line size you use and how it cuts water and current. Okay. So one more thing I just want to throw in there, right? So if you're a freshwater guy, saltwater guys know some of these things from this brand, but what I'm going to tell you guys from the freshwater end. So I've used the 3 and 5 inch for smallies and for largemouth, and they're phenomenal, and they're a great bait. And so Mike asked what size heads for the 3 inch. Good question, because they actually have down to quarter, Mike.
Well, he asked about the 1/2 ounce in particular.
Oh, yeah, you were asking about the 1/2 ounce. Yeah, they actually, I think the 3 inch size goes up to 3/4 even, right? Doesn't it?
We have a 1 ounce coming too, but this is the size of the 1/2 ounce head right there. So that right there is a 1/2 ounce of lead. We do use a 2X mustad hook in there, but so you could see it relative to the bait. You know, you're getting the smaller little paddle tail, of course, and then that's the relative half-ounce head. And we're able to get away with the half-ounce because, of course, you know, that girth, that thickness of the bait will let you put that much more lead on a smaller profile.
And Mike, one more thing too, and then for anyone else watching this, keep in mind the other value here is keep in mind what I was saying about the where the mass of the bait is, whether it be on the 5-inch or replicated proportionally on the 3-inch. That it allows you to use a decent sized hook on a 3-inch bait that you typically couldn't get away with in most other soft plastics in that size range. And the reason is because the predominant amount of the action is in the last third of the bait. It's a little bit more than you would find in most other baits. I would say it's even more than the last third. It's the last quarter. That mass of the body is meant to track true, same concept. So for me, where it's done well, it's done really well in the rivers, in current situations, in pulling them up, trying to slip eddies, and running on current seams. They've done really well. And so basically that's kind of where I've used the swim bait. So basically it's a new presentation. It's a new look that I have been able to show. Look at that thing rigged.
So you can see the half-ounce head on the bait and how that flows.
The jig head's very fluent to the swim bait. So a lot of jig heads, you have a big jig head, small little swim bait on the back. We wanted something that's very fluid.
And then you can see that blunt head that really helps in it not necessarily just cut straight to the bottom, which, you know, there's some people that want that. There's a situation, there's a time and place for everything. For most part, what we're doing, we wanted that blunter head to have a slower presentation, so it really wouldn't. Oh, for bull reds, yeah. Well, we're just fishing. We just did our last video the other night. We were fishing the 8-inch, correct, or the
8-inch and 5 and 3.
Oh no, everything. And 3. Yeah, really, we caught them on everything. The biggest red was caught on the
5-inch.
No, the one I caught
3-inch.
on the 3-inch.
You're right.
It was like a 45-inch red. But they were just stuck on little profiles. What's the largest bait? Thinking muskie. This would
that size, George.
1-ounce head. This is a 1 ounce that you have on here. So with half that weight of head on there, that would be the closest thing that we would have for a muskie bait. And we do have plans for something a little bit bigger than that in the future.
See, look at this. Here, I want you guys to know, just so you guys know that I wasn't telling you that I've talked about this before. Look at this comment. The little mullet was mentioned in a live. I have talked about the little mullet.
Yeah.
That one, Rich, the one that I was showing, this is the, I think it's they're 5.5 inches, this style and this size. And these are the larger ones. And then you've got the little ones that are they 4?
4 inches. Yep.
Guys, these are the real deal. And I'm going to tell you something. Somebody made the comment, South Jersey fisherman said, have you used the little mullet on a chatterbait? I have not, Matt, because I've been rigging them. I rig them on a 2-aught BKK Titan Rider.
Yep.
So that's what I've been rigging these on. But guys, I'm going to, for all you Wisco boys and everything else, what do you think this thing looks like? What do you think that looks like to you?
Well, it
looks like a goby, people. And I'm going to tell you something. And look at On the Fly Tackle's even saying, he goes, Great Lakes walleye, purple haze jig, and lime cider plastic. Thank me later.
Mix and match like that here.
Guys, listen, these mini mullets just came out. So here, you guys allow me to just do my part here. So listen, guys, this is what I'm going to tell you. And whether you're listening or you're new or you're old, if you're old, you've heard me talk about these before. Right? But here's the deal with these guys. This mini mullet, and I will tell you this, even the little mullet, which is the 5.5 inch one, guys, these things are the real deal. And this mini mullet, they're phenomenal. And it's one of the best goby imitators that I've seen in a long time. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because of the keeling effect, one, that this bait has. Okay. And I'll rotate it so you can see. You get an idea of the you see that see how it keels there? But look at these on the side. Guys, what do gobies do? They bounce off the bottom, they flutter down. They bounce off the bottom, they flutter down. All I'm telling you is it absolutely slays the smallies. And I told these guys, one or two things is going to happen. I said, well, actually, no one else I know is using them, but I'm going to tell the story. And I said, just because I'm so impressed with these things, I decided, am I going to keep this to myself or am I going to tell the story? Well, obviously, I decided to have these two guys on Jig Squad. So I'm telling the story. It's the real deal. And there's some cool colors. I'm just telling you, they're awesome. They do have those BKK Titan Riders on there. If you want to use other ones for a wide gap, the owner mini beast, whatever the hell they have, you want to weight them, you can. They're the real deal. I love them. I don't know what else to say.
You did bring up a good point. The way that we weighted them all, and we did design them around that BKK hook, but those wings are going to act, like a stabilizer in the water.
Yes.
So when you do kill this bait, it doesn't just start fluttering down. It actually slowly, it doesn't go straight down either. It kind of slowly catches the water, and I wouldn't call it swim, but it'll drift forward.
It allows it to glide.
Exactly. And it has a lot longer for it to touch the bottom, and like a subtle presentation in that respect. Something that does work well on snook. And I could see now you explaining, the flutter with the goby, how that definitely would work.
Yep.
He's fishing a tidal freshwater with a fair amount of current. I mean, little mullets are always great when you got fish subsurface feeding. If there's mullets or little finger mud minnows floating around or whatever, you'll definitely catch fish on this. But anytime you're fishing anything with current and you want to get to the bottom,
Swimbait,
that's where we switch out to the jig head and swim bait. And my rule of thumb is always the lightest weight possible to be able to hold bottom, so you could have that natural flutter. And Brown Bait Co., we're out of South Florida. We're out of Fort Lauderdale, just west of Fort Lauderdale.
Yep.
Yeah, snook and redfish came. So Brendan, that's what these guys start as. And listen, here's the thing. You guys know how I am. I got to put these things out there because I just speak my mind. I just want you guys to know something. So you guys know I don't rock a lot of gear and everyone else's stuff. These are all things. I'm going to tell you every single thing I own of NLBN, all this stuff. I'm just telling you, I'm not sponsored by NLBN. None of it. This hat, none of it. The only thing that came to me, just so you guys know, from NLBN was these mini mullets. I had these things before they were released.
Yep.
And the only reason I did is because I sent them a message and I said, I think some of these things would be killer for smallmouth up north. And they go, and Jose said to me, well, let me send you something. And these came in the mail. And next thing you know, I've caught fish in the rivers on these. I've used them for smallmouth up north in Door County. It's awesome, dude. And I don't know what to say. And I will tell you, I'm not one to push brands. You guys know the deal. But what I'm telling you is I love these things so much because it's the best goby imitator that's come along in a long time. And I did two things with these just up north, for anyone wondering. When I would fish the rivers at home, I fished this thing weightless, and I would just long weights, letting it sink. But I also put these things on 16th-ounce ball heads, and I would be popping them off the bottom. And I personally found the 16th to be just enough where I could still get a little bit of glide out of it.
Nice.
On the bottom. So there's lots of ways to do things, guys. I'm just telling you that the saltwater world is not separate from the freshwater world, and there's like a crossover between all these things.
Oh yeah.
You know? Okay, so here's a good question.
How does the plastic fare towards fluke? At least down here, we call them flounder. That the guys are crushing the flounder on them. Up in the Northeast, from what I've seen, a lot of the guys really focus on the scented baits for fluke. Just from what I've seen.
Yep.
That's not to say that I haven't gotten a ton of pictures with flatties caught on our 3-inch baits. If you present it right in a fluke's nose, they're going to eat it for the most part. But down here, it's just that perfect little mud minnow imitator, and that's probably a flounder's favorite food is that mud minnow.
Oh yeah.
So that 3-inch really does shine, and we have a guy out of I would say mid-Florida, central Florida, that he's caught quite a few flounder on top water on this little mullet. And those, when they're sitting in 2-3 feet of water, at least over here in our flats, they will take a topwater bait. You know, it's rare to find, but it's actually pretty cool because
Alf is Pandemonium Paladin. His name's Alf. Alf, listen, if you're gonna get the little mullets, the 5.5s, just you want to up that size. You don't want to go with that 2-aught. Like I go with they have a 5-aught of the keepers or whatever you're gonna use. Like this is what I use.
Yeah, we got
5-aught. They have them on the site. You could use whatever the heck hook you want, but I kind of like that bigger hook on that larger size. It just kind of profile wise kind of fits it perfectly. You know, I mean, you got to figure it's not a 5-inch bait, it's a 5.5-inch bait, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's gonna fish exactly like you described as a fluke, and that's the way to fish it. You know, because this has a little larger body profile. I just want you guys to hear this though too. 4-aught's fine. You could do that too, Alf.
Yeah.
Here's the difference though, Alf. For fluke. Okay. Here's the difference, guys. Between your typical fluke and this bait, this is going to be a little heavier, right? Because you have to consider the fact of the body profile that you're going for. Same type of keeling. See that ridge? Same type of keeling effect.
100%.
But because it's got a larger profile, the plastic's a little heavier. So I always tell people, like I usually like a little bigger hook. But I bet you that 4-aught's probably going to work fine too, Alf. I can't see why it wouldn't. You know, it's a cool bait. You know, they held up. Just keep in mind, guys, I think Jose and Brandon said earlier, like a softer plastic. But what you have to understand is that sometimes because somebody tells you a softer plastic doesn't mean that this isn't a plastic worm, for crying out loud. You know, this thing's not getting chewed up real quick because the density and not the density, but how large of a profile it is. There's a lot more plastic there. So it definitely is gonna hold up. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And when he with the good threadfin shad intimidator fish weightless like a fluke, we have a lot of guys in freshwater that are using it. We have a good friend out of Lake Okeechobee that, you know, he's like, there's a time and a place for it, and he's specifically fishing shad for that situation where he's using them for. So, you know, I'm not going to say that it's the next best thing since sliced bread for freshwater, but there's a time and a place for everything. Those fins will help it glide along with that shape. I'll grab a pack or two. It does. Those fins also help it track upwards so it could stay towards the top of the water. And when you kill it, it does really stabilize it so it doesn't just like airplane down in a spiral. It'll give you a nice glide, especially if you keep the line somewhat taut. There's just like a fine line between just slacking the line completely and leaving a big slack in the line, or just when you stop retrieving, you just keep it slightly taut, and that really helps like keep that bait tracking where you want it to go. And it's pretty nice because you stop it in front of a fish and it is still getting away from it. It's not just acting like a bait that died.
And a lot of your bites come on that pause. You'll just be letting it glide and you'll just feel thump.
Yeah, Brendan's saying Brendan Brown was talking about using them on a free rig. So basically almost like and just like a Carolina rig or what do we call them in the surf? What's the name of them? Oh my goodness. I don't know. It's not a knocker rig. What is it? A free slide rig.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
That's a good idea. You could use them. I mean, I personally like, I just like the way they're keeled. I don't know what else to say. They're really, that's my jam. I did wind up putting, like I said, on a 16th-ounce ball. I don't know if that's the right weight. I might even try it on like a 3/32. See, but you guys got to understand, I'll make 3/32 in like a with a 1-aught hook.
Okay.
So it's got to be there's no little hooks, you know, but I'll play around with them some more. And the thing, so you guys I can only try so many things because all I had before they came out was one damn pack, right? So I was pretty skimpy with these things about how I managed my experiences with them. But now that they're out, now I get to go hog wild. So
I'd love to know how that works on the free rig, because I do know that it's going to want to come upwards. So it's going to be nice because they'll keep that bait off the bottom. So I'd love to hear how that works out for you, Brown Bait Co.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. What's Al saying? Titan Riders are out of stock, but I have plenty of any hook size and style known to man. I'm placing an order for fresh mullet 5.5 inch now. I really like that color, dude. To be honest with you, the fresh mullet's my favorite. But you know what? Here's the thing. This is where these guys get me. I just got to say this. They know, they probably know what I'm about to say. Scott, what's up, buddy? Evening. So what gets me is there's the standard colors, right? There's like, it's like a white pearl, hell yeah, butter. There's the mullet, twisted tea. Those are some of the stand. And what's the other ones? The standard.
We got smoked mullet.
Smoked mullet.
Purple haze is a purple. Lime cider.
Yeah.
Mullet run.
Those are the standards. But then
Yeah,
you guys
have the 5 and 8, and then we do a little bit something different for the 3 inch and for the little mullets, but we really do try to keep it to natural colors, for the exception of the lime and the purple. You know, and even the purple, to me, it's just a dark profile bait. That's you know, that to me is a natural color.
So this is where you guys are going to go nutso, because it doesn't show up as much on camera. This is like, it's more orangey than what is showing up on camera. But they do these limited batches that come out. How often? Once a month?
Every 2 to 3 weeks, roughly.
Yep.
Every 2 to 3 weeks, they pull off a crazy. They pull out a. What are some other ones? That one, the green one I showed you, the Juno one.
But we just here pop that out so they can see that. That's one of the last limited batches that we just released. This is well, we did a color contest, so we let the people name the color, and it came out nice.
That name is great. And then look at here. This was one too, guys. It's hot. Oh, let me see if I can get the
murder mullet.
Yeah, murder mullet. The more the brighter it is outside, the more you're gonna see the red.
Yep.
It's freaking killer. It's I don't know, guys. Just like a lot of it's a lot of fun stuff. And you guys know me. I wasn't fishing this size stuff for bass. And then I started to, and I just had a blast with it. And you guys know I love the salt. So for me, this was going to be stuff I was going to fish for snook. I'm bringing a lot of this stuff down to Costa Rica with me. Jigsquad is going to Costa Rica this summer. So I'm super excited about that. But guys, listen, you guys know I'm into making jig heads, and I like these guys because of their jig heads. But don't you find it funny that it started off as these jig heads to manage a lot of the larger size swim baits that were on the market? And then they started making all these other baits, and this little mullet is the real deal. The swim baits are real good, but I really love the little mullet.
Yeah,
white whale, they're down in Florida. Where in Florida again are you guys at?
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale.
All right, Deerfield Beach. That pier is my sanctuary. All right, so
nice.
That's DFP, Deerfield Beach Pier. That's we got a lot of good friends from over there, so that's cool to hear.
Hey, if anyone's new in chat tonight, or you're there and you're kind of like, what are these guys talking about, or what's new? Go ahead, shout out. I saw some of you guys earlier. Say something in chat. I appreciate all you guys. The whole intent of Jig Squad, and I'll repeat for anyone that came in later, the whole intent of Jig Squad is to highlight jig designers from around North America. So whether it's a tire, a bucktail guy, whatever it is, if you're making custom bucktail jigs, skirted jigs, all the above for bass, saltwater, we highlight it. And so my goal is to interview and have conversations with an end of the industry that doesn't get half the attention. And we talk about jigs primarily, swim baits, obviously, because that's got to be part of the jig experience. But this is Jig Squad. And so if you're here for the first time, I appreciate you. If you're a regular, you guys know what to expect. Kiko's Outdoors. What's up, brother? This guy, guys, Kiko Outdoors is down in the Keys.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. This guy is one of the hottest photographers and videographers in the entire country. He does a lot of stuff all over the place. He's a good dude. Kiko, what's up, brother? How are you, man? We've been chatting back and forth for he makes some crazy cool types of jigs too over the years too, but he doesn't put them out as much as he should. But anyway, I changed the night, and all of a sudden we get him on the show. So but anyway, it's all right. So these are some of the things that are out. I'm happy I got to talk a little bit about the definitely the smaller size stuff. But I want to talk about too two things. One, because I know a lot of people are going to watch this on replay, and I got to make sure we hit it. And I want to talk about some future things too. But everything's always about jigs around here. We're Jig Squad, right? So
Okay.
one of the things that I've seen come up, and I'm gonna watch how I say all these things. One of the things that comes up all the time is everyone talks about what type of, oh my God, this guy got me to stop. Look at this. Is there an NLBN shrimp in the works?
Yes,
There
there
is.
is.
Yes.
I had to stop for that.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, there's a 3-inch shrimp and a 4-inch shrimp in the works. And
Yes.
it's gonna be the best tracking shrimp jig head you've ever used.
man, I'm tempted to grab them.
I know, but I don't want to show them yet.
No, you got to hold. And
They're
I-
amazing. They're
Yeah.
when
pretty
you
much
guys bring them out down the line, when they're
Oh, yeah.
coming out, well, I'll bring you guys on again, and
Yep.
and you guys can whatever. I didn't know this. That's exciting.
Yep.
That's very
Yeah.
cool. It was enough to get me to stop because I was, what I was about to start on.
Well, go ahead. But yes, we do have shrimp jigs in the works. We're finalizing hooks now, and I think we've come to a couple finalizations. We're looking at getting some custom hooks made for them as well, just to make sure we get exactly what we want out of them. But they are going to be, heavy duty saltwater 2X hooks for the shrimp jigs, and the shrimp jig is going to be like no other jig head you've ever seen.
Yep.
That's
Very cool.
off camera a little later on. I'll give you a little sneak peek.
I love it. I love it. All right. So now, in case you haven't figured out, Matt's from the Upper East Coast, so you can see why he's talking about eels, right? So
Great question. One of our good friends, Craig, fishes up there a lot, and we have a straight tail. So we went out there, we put a hurting on him. It's essentially our 8-inch bait, but with the straight tail. It's like a little bit of it's not a fork tail perpendicular, it's vertical fork. But this is, really great for our kind of fishing, especially. We're trying to imitate a ladyfish. So a ladyfish is a lot more girth than an eel in that respect. And being that we're in Florida, we don't have to contend with 25 mile an hour northeastern, and you're trying to get into the wind as far as possible. So, working with one of our friends at Striper Fishes out there, we are looking at doing like a thinner variant of this, maybe even a little bit longer, something that we've tried and true that we know that can cast really well into the wind. And then we're playing around a couple different tail designs to do something different, because at the end of the day, we're not trying to just follow anybody's footprint. We're doing things for ourselves or guys that we really respect, like, some of our buddies up in the Northeast. And we're really we're taking from their feedback, when it comes to the design of it. But that is something that, we're thinking about. Not that we have anything on the books or anything, but we're playing with it. And when it's right, it's something we'll release.
Here's another one, sand eels. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a chunkier profile sand eel. We went fishing with them in the Northeast, and we went fishing with this guy that is probably one of the best guys we went with. And with their thinner profile baits versus these thicker ones, we went shoulder to shoulder with them and some. And,
yeah, we did.
He'd attest to that as well. It's not like we're throwing any shade, but also, too, there's a big confidence thing at the end of the day when you're throwing baits. And we're very confident in ours. But this little straight tail, that's your eel imitator. Is it going to cast as good as a very thin, long straight tail? No, it's not. But when you don't have to cast it 150 yards, that's a killer.
You know what's interesting about that? With the larger size of that too, Jose, is that like like an example would be for the upper Northeast guys, like the Albie snacks. Like those baits are so dense and so weighted. And they're just like fat. They're just fat little baits. But I mean the Albies but the stripers love them up there too, And so very interesting, the crossover of the different types of fishing and how diverse some of these things become. Because here we are, this was a company designed around basically snook fishing down south, and now it's becoming a very popular thing on the upper East Coast, or all along the East Coast. And now I'm talking about it in terms of the Midwest and the Great Lakes regions in terms of some of the functionality of it. And the one thing I'll say about that is everyone should open their eyes and realize that the things other people do may benefit you sometimes too. And if you're doing the same thing that every other slap next to you is doing, you probably should try something new and different. And it just keeps the experience more alive. And
100%.
yeah, I mean, here we are. You know, the guy from Chicago that's been making jigs for almost 30 years is talking to the guys from Florida that are, you know, banging out some great jigs and swim baits. So, and of course, Wazy wants to know when your hats are coming back in.
Oh, that's that. We try to do that with our limited drops, and we do very limited quantities. We don't bring back any styles, so they do go quick. So stay tuned on our Instagram. You'll find out about our limited drops that happen, and we usually put out 5 or 6 hats whenever we do that drop. And you know, you got to be on the website at 8 p.m.
Alf, Paladin.
The thing about the spinner,
those are the Titan Riders. No,
yeah,
wait,
the Titan divers. Titan Riders
Divers.
are weighted. Titan divers are weighted. They do have a spinner, but it's an easy click on, click off. I personally fish them with the spinner off.
Yeah, this is with it off.
Yeah, and I even take a pair of bullnose dikes and kind of cut that off because I'm anal about little things like that. But you could definitely fish it. I prefer it without the spinner, especially for this bait.
You could catch fish.
Even though there's guys sending us pictures with a ton of fish caught with the spinner, and we threw it ourselves just to see how it swam, and it actually kept the bait tracking super nice.
It tracks perfect in the water.
It was really weird because it wasn't designed with the spinner, for a spinner, nothing to do with the spinner. And just we threw it one time that we were out there just to see what it looked like, and it tracked really freaking nice with the spinner. And we get pictures all the time.
Yeah, we do.
With guys catching fish with the bait with the spinner, and you're not really doing too much jerking when it has that spinner. It's kind of
it's keeping it tracking straight.
Yeah, it's like a slow retrieve,
like
but
a spinner bait.
It really does look good. So I'm not gonna knock those guys. I've never caught a fish with it. I don't fish it with the spinner, but you know, I've seen crazy messages people have sent us of fish they've caught. So don't shy away just because you ordered it. It literally clips right off.
Yeah, and keep in mind, if you're a freshwater person and you have confidence in that spinner, then by all means do it. And and understand there's different purposes for why you would run it weightless or why you would run it with weight. And like, let me give you an example, everyone. One of the weights that I use, and I make my own for underweighted screw locks or for big bait hooks like this or gliders, I don't go much above an 1/8 ounce a lot of times. I really don't. And that's basically for freshwater fishing and what I'm fishing. Now, if it was in the salt, it'd be a little different, right? And a lot of that, you guys have to keep in mind, everything's about, you know, circumstances. What is the current like? What am I trying to make this bait do? And if you're not asking yourself that question, you should start, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're fishing an NLBN stuff, you're tossing a bucktail. It does not matter. Ask yourself why you're throwing what you're throwing and what you need to do to accomplish what you want to do. And then start having conversations with people. And that's what Jigsquad is about. But go ahead, guys.
I do see somebody wrote, what is the 5-inch weigh without a jig head? Where was that at? Yeah, what's the weight of the 5-inch plastic with no hook? This one here, in particular, they're all the same, you know, any of the 5-inch here. The little mullet's a little lighter, but this is about right about an ounce with the plastic.
All right, let's talk about that though. So guys, you guys have to understand something. So anything that for anyone that said, oh, wow, that's kind of heavy, that's an ounce, understand something. The overall length of a bait is going to change how that's going to fall in the water. The profile of the body is going to change how it falls in the water. So what you know to be, like everyone talks about, like if it's Texas rigged or what size ball head jig or what, you know, whatever jig head that you have on a bait. And then you talk about adding the bait on.
Yeah.
All baits have weight. Even the goofy, even if you're throwing like a creature bait in freshwater and you're throwing that on there and you're like, oh, it's on a 1/4 ounce Texas rig. Yeah, but the bait weighs over a 1/4 ounce itself too. So it's like you have to broaden your way of thinking and stop listening what everyone else tells you all the time and understand that baits are going to do different things. And so what I was amazed by, just going to be honest, throwing the 5-inch baits is that they don't sink like a rock, right? they're going to change, and you're going to be able to do what you need it to do, right? And the thing is, you got to try it to understand. And once you start thinking about that all your plastics have weight as well, you're going to become a better fisherman because you're going to be able to make your baits do more of what you want them to do. And I'll tell you, here's another thing too, for everyone listening. If you're buying some other swim baits out there on the market that are, you know, people could talk about lots of different values of different swim baits. But the thing is, what you get in a swim bait, you get what you pay for, right? And the thing is, if it doesn't track the way you want it to track, if you can't hold it on the bottom the way you want to hold it on the bottom, or if it doesn't glide the way you want, what good is it? Yeah. You want your baits to do what you want them to do. And this is why asking people what their story is, and this is why NLBN being on Jigsquad Live, this is the real deal.
Yep. Yeah.
And I appreciate that. You know, you brought up a really good point with, like, not that all plastics are not created equal. They all have a certain purpose that you're trying to get out of them, you know, and this sounds like an ounce, but you could compare this to a soft plastic, half of the weight of this. So it'd be a lighter soft plastic. You put it on the same jig head, it's going to cut through the water and sink a lot faster than something that has a wider profile, you know what I mean, that, you know, has more displacement of water. Thus, it's not going to allow it to just, you know, sink to the bottom very quickly. And all of that was taken into account. So, like, some people are like, oh, overall weight, now I'm fishing a 2.5 ounce versus a half the weight of another soft plastic. But that soft plastic might be lighter, you know, with the same size jig head, it's going to be sinking faster than something that weighs more. So I think you brought up a really good point. Something a lot of people overlook. They're just stuck on the weight and not looking at the shape of the jig head, where the hook eye placement is, what kind of plastic they're fishing on it. If that tail is, you know, displacing a lot of water and has a lot of resistance versus a tail that has no resistance. Obviously, a straight tail is going to fish completely different than a paddle tail, whether it be the same exact size, weight, or anything. What's the difference? It's the resistance that tail's playing. Yep. And every soft plastic acts different. So, you know, it's not a knock on any soft plastic at all. They all have their time and place. And you know, we made ours to complement our jig heads for the specific kind of fishing that we're doing. And it really translates to, like you're seeing in the Northeast, it's, you know, it's on fire out there, and it's for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Slaying the Gulf really wants a bright yellow or a red limited batch.
I mean, drop the bright yellow or an all red limited batch.
We're doing a yellow coming up soon.
We got a yellow coming.
A bright yellow.
100%.
Oh, see, there you go, guys. This is why you come.
Do you have one there?
No, I don't. I don't have. I got one at my house. I don't have one here.
No, I thought you had it here.
No,
the yellow one.
No.
We do have the red one where we call it Squidbilly. It's not like a bright red, but it's like a red
natural.
Mix.
Yeah, natural.
Yeah.
Cool.
Man, you're right. The JDM stuff does list a lot of that, you know, like, and it's nice to know that. I mean, and let's be honest, a lot of times the JDM guys, or I'll say from the bass scene, right? The JDM guys from the bass scene are really into some of those details, right? They want to know these additional things. And that's the value base that I think needs to be applied to more fishing experiences that people have. And I just think it's important. So Alf Paladin's asking, does the little mullet plastic play nice with other plastics?
Yeah. Yep. Normal plastisol.
It's just regular plastisol. If you do mix it with like an Elastec type of material, they are going to react with each other. But you can mix this with any other type of bass worm or soft plastic, and it
not have to worry.
Bait, it will be fine.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, look at and Cars is talking about he wants some red jig heads.
Oh, let me go get the Squidbillies to show them.
Yeah,
that's a good color red.
Yeah, that's a nice color. It's a red with like a little bit of a blue hue. You know, we don't just try to do a solid color, and one of the nice things we get to see is we get to not only do we fish them, right? Of course, but we get to see. We do a limited batch and we do a release. And within that first week, you could see how well that color performs at whatever time of year you release it at. And that red, that Squidbilly color that we did release, like that first week, we got an absurd amount of pictures.
You get the feedback real quick. White whale, no brick and mortar yet.
With the, what do you mean brick and mortar?
He's saying he goes, he's placing an order before he comes down to Florida in March. He goes, he'd love to stop and meet you guys if you have a brick and mortar.
Well, we have our warehouse here in Fort Lauderdale. So you know what? Anybody that's on here that's in the area that is more than welcome. You know, that's a Jig Squad exclusive.
There you go. There you go,
Welcome to
peeps.
pass by. If you shoot us like a DM on Instagram, we'll coordinate and we'll make sure that you can swing by.
And if you act like a fool, I'm going to come and get you.
Yeah. We do have a ton of locations in Florida.
No, what I know White Whale. He won't. He's a good dude. He's
cool.
a good dude. He won't. But anyway, it's nice. I mean, so what? Hold that up again, Jose.
Here you go.
I need to get a bait with that.
Yeah, grab a bait. Where am I? All right. We have, this is what we call the squidbilly. It has a, like a plum red kind of color to it.
Nice.
We do have some sparkles in it. It's so hard to see details in this. We have 2 different glitters in there. And then it does have a little bit of a blue sheen in the belly, like a little tiny bit of blue highlight, a touch. You could see it in person a lot better than what we can on the video, but it does have like a nice little blue sheen on there.
Yeah.
We do put the glitter on it, and then he'll have a bait here that he'll be able to show you. This is an 8-inch bait of that same color. But we're going for like a northeast kind of squid. It does have like a blue sheen belly, some glitters in it, and some translucency.
Yeah, this
it depends on the bait.
Really
some baits make it 0 translucency. You want a very solid bait, a nighttime solid dark color. That's something that you would want to have. You don't want it opaque in any way, at least for this specific bait. And then, other baits we make with a little bit more opacity to it or translucentness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, more natural daytime colors or clear water, that translucence, opacity, whatever you want to call it, it does help get the bite in that respect. And then at nighttime, when you want a hard silhouette, that's where I would go to, like, this is my bread and butter, the darker, the purple haze. We fish a lot of new moon situations in the middle, at night. There's pitch black. And believe it or not, even just that little bit of overcast from the moon up there, that's going to create a silhouette.
Was that the 8-inch paddle tail?
Yeah.
And purple
this is
haze.
My bread and butter. This is what I fish most often when I'm snook and tarpon fishing. Beautiful. That and the 5-inch, and I'm becoming a sucker for the 3-inch too, because it's just
that 3-inch is dead.
Catching so many fish. I can't see him have another 20 fish night.
Brian, it holds it really good. I put I like ProCure, so I used
oh yeah.
you know what I put on? I put on Travis's Smalley Magic up north. And the nice thing is on there's like a little
slit.
There's like a little hook slit. You know what I'm saying? So that's hard to show. Let's see. There's a little hook slit. So I would put it in there, and then and it worked pretty well. So I was happy with it, and that's how I used it when I was using it for Smalleys, at least in that way. So let me see. What am I missing here?
I see, guys. They're talking about the Elastec. The what is it? I do use a lot of the Elastec stuff. Another guy talking about durability. Pretty extreme saltwater line too.
Yeah, another guy said, "Are they hand poured or injected?"
Every
single bait is hand poured.
Yep. The same way, every bait we hand poured here for the first 1.5 years, and we set up the same process. So overseas, they're doing it with the same exact plastic, pigments, everything to a T. We didn't okay the first bait until we couldn't tell the difference between the way they did it and ourselves. How can I fish with you? Try to win.
You gotta win. You gotta come up with a cool name for the baits.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I just wanted to make a point with the Elastec stuff. Great stuff. Everything has its purpose and time. But I think Tim said it best, in my opinion. It's, I want to fish what gets bit. We come from bass fishing as well. We've gone through 20, 30, 50 packs of baits. You use a Senko, you use
a pile of baits at the end of the day when you're done fishing.
You have a pile of baits and we mend them. If we didn't have anything given to us or anything like that, we'd purpose those baits, save as many as we can, salvage them. But just going from bass fishing for a 2-3 pound bass that's going to go tear your $1, $2, $3 soft plastic, to then going snook fishing and tarpon fishing, where you're looking for just that one bite. A lot of times there's no bites in that night.
Oh yeah.
But that difference between one bite or not, I mean, I'm gonna err to the bite. Like, I don't care what it is. I don't care how, not that I don't care either, but how durable they are. At the end of the day, none of that matters if you're not getting the bite first. So, everything from the hardness of the plastic to the way that it, every single thing that we've done, this bait has a harder plastic than this bait. This bait has a harder plastic than this bait. And all of that has to do with the action of the bait, with how that action corresponds with the jig head that you're using for the bait, for the kind of situation that you're using it for. It's not like a one size fits all or anything like that. The detail that we took to find every different, hardness of the plastic for each bait to have that specific kind of action, I think is something that a lot of other companies overlook. Like when you're talking about Elastec, there's just one, kind of Elastec. There's not like a softer one and a harder one, depending on what type of bait you're trying to make. It's like the formula, and that's it. And that's where I think also to the attention to detail that we have to the baits. That's why we use a little bit of a softer rubber here, because we want to make sure that it does kick when there's no moving current, but then also perform in high moving current. But at the end of the day, I want to get that bite. I want to make sure that bait is performing properly to get that bite first. You know what I mean? Because without that bite, you could have the most durable bait in the world. If you're not getting bit on it, what is it worth?
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking on it. I like some of their stuff. I like some of the Elastec stuff. I hate the way that it acts with our tackle and the way it melts your tackle boxes, or you leave it in the hot car and it does, it does weird stuff. But like everything, there's a time and a place for it. So I'm not knocking it, but there is a limitation to the way I see companies work with that. And then the way that we approach everything, where everything is specifically catered to that specific kind of bait, to that specific jig head, and how it's going to act. And we even test them when we get here to make sure that the stiffness is exactly what we're looking for. And we're very strict on that, because we fish them and we're looking for a specific kind of action out of it. So.
Yeah. Steel curtain. There's a lot of videos that will show you how to rig them, but basically it's no different than any. You want to show?
Yeah, I'll rig one right now.
There we go.
All you're going to do is line it up. On some of the jig heads, the hook shank coming off the back of the jig head is going to be higher up. They're not going to be centered like most jig heads are. So the shank of the hook is higher than center. So when you rig it, you're going to want to rig it right towards the top. Get it as straight as you can. Poke it through. Just push it right to where the screw lock starts and just start twisting it clockwise. 1 twist, 2 twist, 3, 4, 5. And if it's a little off-centered, then you can just squeeze it. And that's going to stay on there.
So, and guys, keep in mind, so one of the things is, like, you'll watch a lot of guys that will go and rig them. And, there's really not a wrong way to do it. Like, what the people will do is you always want to measure where that hook's supposed to come out of the back of the bait. But then when you start, that's where you want it to come out. But then once you start twisting that on the bait, sometimes people will twist it multiple times and then flip it around the hook. I always tell people, just flip it as you go. When you twist once, flip once. Twist once, flip once.
There's 2 different techniques. Like Jose, when he'll twist it on, he'll just go like this and twist the tail around it.
Yeah.
Me, I like to go like this, use my thumb, my pointer finger, and push it underneath the barb, so that barb is not catching the soft plastic. So you just don't want that barb to cut into the swim bait.
Yeah.
Alf just said, the last comment I saw at the bottom, he goes, "Oh yeah, if there's a wrong way, I'll find it."
Yeah, we've had some guys just try to push them into the screw lock.
Yeah.
But once you do get that and you figure it, I think Brandon hit it at first, and it's something that's looked, at least in our kind of fishing. But this heavier bait, now we're talking about, 50 grams of plastic. When you're slinging this as hard as you can, and you're slinging it into the wind, yeah, all of us have ran into it. Anybody that uses a regular jig head,
big 9 to 10
eventually, and even after a fish or two, that bait comes off. If you see here, this really, this is in there. Like, that bait is going to rip in half before. So it's another thing that adds to the durability of our baits over others, is that we have that screw lock design, at least, especially on the heavier heads, that we could get away with the softer plastic to get better action, and you're not risking the fact that that bait is going to fly off, when you cast. So that's a big one to us, where that screw lock really changed the game, because we used to have super glue in our pockets,
leak in our bag.
And no matter what, after 10 casts or after a bite or two, that plastic is coming off. It's blown out.
It's done.
You're going to have to stick it in your pocket, grab another one. And we're going through a lot more baits than, with this kind of design.
And keep in mind, like, guys, this is the same type of thing as any other swim bait game, right? If you're a largemouth guy and you use plastic swim baits, that you can use the Mend It. You guys can use the Spike It stuff. It's all
we
it's
sell
all the
it.
same thing.
Same stuff.
It's one of the things, we're fishermen before anything.
Yep.
So we've gone out there. We know what it is to lose $50, $60, $100 worth of tackle in a night. We're fishing boulder fields. We're fishing whenever we're fishing our baits in any inlet, we're fishing right along the bottom. We're trying to keep this bait a foot or two off the bottom without making contact as much as possible. But with that being said, you're going to lose a couple jigs a night, no matter what. So we've really focused. We know what it is to go through baits. So that screw lock design in itself really made a big difference in just extending the life of the bait. Really.
Yeah. And let's talk about that a little more. Go ahead. Oh, there you go.
The baits do rip. Let's say you catch a fish, you get a big rip in the tail or something. This fixed lure stuff, it chemically welds.
Well, show them
the plastic back together.
We could do it.
I'll do one right now.
Dude, look at this.
It's not like super glue, so get super glue out of your head.
Yeah, it's completely different. It chemically welds it. This is not a product that we made. You know what I mean? And we didn't ever have to introduce this or sell it to anybody or anything. But like I said, we're fishermen. We know what it is to go through baits.
Here, hold this because I want to show them how to
do it. And I mean, this is essential to get the most out of your baits. And that's,
I've got to clip this later, and I'm going to make a short out of it
at the end of the day. And we keep all our baits. We save them. We remend them. And, we come from there. So
I just put a little bit on one side. You want to give it a nice firm push.
And hold.
And you want to hold there probably for about 15, 20 seconds. So I'm just going to hold it there.
Yeah, we'll come back to it in a second.
And later on, we'll come back and we'll show you how it's strong.
It makes it very, and this actually works on any of your soft plastics. So if you have regular, not Elastec stuff, but any of your bass worms, any of your, anything that you have that's soft plastic and it tears, you can get a lot more life out of your baits out of that. And I hope that everybody that uses our baits uses that so they could get the most out of it. It's not about, it's about getting the most out of it.
I like to go around the rip a little bit. And then that's it. Then hold.
Yeah, guys, and think of it. So just keep this in mind. So the swim bait guys, fresh or salt, all know this, right? About using this. But if you're not, if this isn't a product that you, or you're not using different baits like this, here's the thing, you should be. And the reason is because this isn't like pulling off a tube or a grub or something else that you're fishing for smallies. These are, you're spending more money on swim baits. I mean, so the reality is you have to learn to play the game too.
Yep.
And everyone needs to save a buck any way you can. Matt, South Jersey Fisherman's totally right. If you think bass fishing is snaggy, those jetties are professional lure takers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we know exactly the feeling. So anytime we could find a product to save our guys money, like some people ask us, why would you even sell that? People are going to get double the life out of your baits. And I want that to be the case. So yeah, you might spend a little bit more on it, but you can get a lot out of it.
It's called, Paladin, it's called Spike It.
Spike It. Fix-a-lure.
Yeah, it's the same as Mend It. That we used to sell Mend It beforehand, and we found the guys that made Mend It. So This is
No,
it.
yeah, Tim was asking the same thing. I
It's
kind of
the
think
same-
it's the
same product.
Same stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So listen, guys, one thing that I want to make sure we talk about, because we got to hit on me talking about freshwater and my love of all this stuff, and it's kind of been cool because I think a lot of people from the salt or fresh is gonna learn a little something tonight.
It's
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
But I want to talk about this, and this is for all my people out in the East Coast. Guys, listen, hooks are everything, right? We talk about this sometimes, and everyone always wants to know, what are people using? So, guys, talk to me about the hooks in the jig heads, and let's just get at it, because I think everyone likes to talk about these topics. It doesn't matter where you're at, and and people want to know. So, talk to us about what hooks you're using and why.
We're gonna start with the 3-inch.
Okay.
Mustad 32824 2-aught, and that is a 2X black nickel coated hook.
Yep.
We use that same model hook in our 8-inch series, and that's a 9.0.
Yeah, it's the strongest hook, Mustad has out. That's the 9.0 version. It's a 2.0. I mean, we'll fish it with 50, 65 pound braid and put, all the pressure you need to on a big tarpon or snook and not have to worry about it. We've caught, I have friends and caught striped bass, 50 pounders, and this hook right here, it's like a little gaff. That's everything that we use, especially for South Florida, being that we're big snook tarpon fishermen. That's how we cut our teeth. We're using everything, the best quality that we could find, OEM, and we are looking at some custom options.
Alf, Alf, that's why you gotta wait for your order until after you get through the show. You're too anticipatory, and you fire off your order and send it in.
I got you, buddy. Just send me your order number. I got you covered.
Email the order number, Alf, and I'll have them charge me for it or something. I don't know what the hell to do. All right, so let's see. What do we got going here?
Loop knot.
Lassie again. Why do you guys do a loop knot? Will it work the same if I did a normal uni knot? That's a good question.
So the reason why is so that bait has the freedom to, if you're tight on the line, it still has the freedom to play on the loop and go down, and then when you come tight, so it just allows a little bit more freedom on the line. Whereas if your knot is cinched really tight from the bottom and you have a little bit of, it's gonna kind of have a little loop where it's coming from. So we personally prefer the loop knot. A lot of guys in the Northeast use the TA clips, which kind of serves the same purpose.
Yep. And
I think Brandon, I'd like for him to go over, the 5.0 hook, or I'm sorry, the 5-inch hook, which is an 8-aught, 32824 Mustad. That's O'Shaughnessy. It's a 2X as well.
No, this is a 34185.
34185. I'm
Yep.
sorry. Excuse me.
Tin.
It's a 2-aught. It's a short shank variant. So that's perfect on our 5-inch, and it really has a lot of strength to it. That was our original hook right there.
Yep.
And I'll throw in, this is the Mike Murphy Jig Squad ad for this. Guys, the function of a short shank hook is to limit leverage of a big fish. And other people are going to have differing opinions on that, but that's one of the reasons, right? And it's true, and it's definitively true, and it's one of the points of but understand that it's all a formula, right? Like, you have to sit there and calculate how a hook is going to work with different weights and what that's like.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I think it's a great hook. I like the 5s. That's my favorite one of all of them.
Ours
But
too.
anyway,
Ours
go
too.
ahead, boys.
Ours too. No, it's super heavy duty hooks, 2X. We just try to find the most premium hooks that before anything that we would want to fish.
Yep.
And we don't sacrifice for anybody. I think that's one of the reasons why we've become successful is we really spared no expense, whether it be the eyeball, the stainless steel keeper, the hook. I mean, the process, the paint job, everything. We went above and beyond to make sure that we're getting the highest level of product. And I think you mentioned like JDM earlier. We take a lot of inspiration from the JDM brands because of their fanaticism of perfection.
Yeah, good comment.
We love it. Like, I have a collection of JDM lures just for like peacock fishing.
Yep.
and swim baits or whatever. We're always have our ear to the ground. That
I
jig
just
culture is just like no other. And
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, listen, I just want to pimp. This is for everyone out there. I just want to pimp Kiko's Outdoors. But anyway, if you chase him down on Instagram, there's Kiko's Outdoors, but then there's also Key West Life, KEYWESTLIFE. And his name, this is Neil, man. And he is one of the best photographers in the sport fishing industry and takes pictures and videos all around the world. And you guys should all check him out. And he's a diehard. He was born and raised in Key West. He's the real deal. So anyone out there, if you're a Jig Squad fan, you should be following Neil at Key West Life.
Gotta check him out.
I'll put it here. It's Key West Life. It's LIFE, I think. He's the real deal. I love you too, brother. You know what it is, Neil? I just need a place to stay when I come down there.
That was super cool. Fourth quarter, that was hilarious comment. We're not hiring at the moment, but we're always looking for talent. He's like, I moved across the state to come work for you guys. I love that. I use a lot of
NLBN.
Fix a lure from NLBN site from now on. I'm sold on these guys. Oh, show them the bait. Now that we got it up.
We should give it a little bit more. Give it a little bit more time.
What I like to do is whenever I get home from fishing, I get all my ripped up baits. I just make sure they're dry, like pat them dry with the paper towel. Just make sure they're not wet. And then I'll get to fix it. So I'll sit there and I'll start mending all the lures together, and I'll just leave them there overnight. Like you want to apply a little bit of pressure to it, when they're gluing, and I'll just kind of leave them there on the table, flat side down, and just let them. I leave them overnight. Technically, it's a couple minute fix, and they're ready to use.
30 minutes, and you could use the bait again. Like right now, it's not coming apart, and you could stretch it a little bit, but I'll give it another 10 minutes before I really pull on it.
Yeah, if you let that stuff cure for an extended period of time, you're golden, right? You're going to get more life out of your baits. And to be honest with you, you should be using that with all your plastics, right? It's just how it is, especially big swim baits like that. All right, so that's the hooks. Talk to me a little bit, guys, about what's coming down the pike. So you already talked about the shrimps.
Oh man, we got a lot.
Well, hold on. Let's not talk to me about the smaller jig head sizes. What about that?
So we're gonna have an 1/8 ounce jig head for the 3-inch dropping.
You guys hear that? Open your ears, everyone.
It's gonna match up perfect and fluent to the bait. Width and horizontal. And then we also have a heavier 1 ounce. This is just a prototype here, but this is a little 1 ounce head that's going to line up perfect with the bait also.
Yeah. The 1/8 ounce is probably the #1 recommended jig head that we have. The 1/8 of an ounce, we're also going to do. So we do an 1/8 of an ounce, a 1/4 ounce, 3/8, 1/2 ounce, and 3/4. Now, a lot of the times where we fish down here, we're
in the 3s, right?
Yeah, in the 3-inch.
3-inch size, yeah.
So right now we have 1/4 ounce, 3/8, 1/2, and 3/4. But my partner and I, we primarily fish the 1/2 ounce and 3/4. We're fishing this little bait in 15, 20, 30 feet of water sometimes. We're sweeping, trying to get to the bottom, and that 3/4 ounce is probably our go-to. Don't get it wrong. We do a lot of freshwater fishing and inshore fishing as well. And that's where the 1/8 of an ounce is really going to shine. Obviously, we use the 2X hook on everything right now, but we are looking at the 1X version for the 1/8 of an ounce and 1/4 ounce. So I do know that there are some finesse guys out there or light tackle guys that are fishing 6, 8 pound mono. That 1/0 option is going to be the perfect option. This is a stout hook. This is a hook that I'll fish with up to 30 pound braid, put some serious heat on fish, not have to worry. But we're going to do a 1X option for the bass guys, smallies, walleye guys. That way you guys can have something where you can present 6, 8 pound mono. You don't have to worry, still be able to penetrate.
This is a good question. Let me take a stab at this, guys. And if you guys want to jump in on that, that's fine. So, Anthony, here's the thing. You guys know that I love 90-degree ball head jigs, right? But I love them for vertical applications, right? When we're fishing smallmouth on the Great Lakes, we're fishing boulder fields and big rocks and chunk rock and rebar and 6 missing cars from the south side of Chicago. And you're vertical jigging a lot through but a lot. Let's just say that. Basically, that's the type of fishing you're doing. And it's not always just straight vertical jigging. But here's the deal. Understand something. When you're talking about a swim bait and you have a 90-degree line tie, what's going to happen is the bait's going to track cockeyed in the water, right? It's going to be angled. But when you have a weight forwarded hook like that, that's why you'll see in most swim baits, it has that styled head, right? And so that is the difference why a swim bait would have a weight forward. Is that a 60-degree eye, guys? I think. What are we calling that? 60
degree. Yep.
Yeah. But how would you answer that question, Jose or Brandon?
Without giving away all the secrets.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. So with hooks, it could go 60, 40, or 90 degrees. But depending where your line tie of your hook is either on the very front of the jig head or back towards the center or a little bit further back, all plays a huge role of how that bait is swimming when you're reeling it in or letting it sink or just holding it there in the current. It all plays a role if your bait's going to act like this in the water when you're swimming it, if it's going to act perfectly horizontal straight, or if it's going to act like this. So
you got to balance.
Smaller weights are going to work differently depending on the weight of the plastic that you're using.
Exactly. And so we know this bait's a lot lighter. This jig head's a lot lighter. People are going to be using it around grass, weeds, and stuff.
And casting out far.
So it's going to roll over grass. You get a little bit of grass on your line, it's going to go right over it. Rocks will go over a little bit easier.
And remember, with the lighter heads, you're casting out far, and then you're bringing it to you. You have a long angle on your line, and it's very horizontal. Whereas when we're fishing the heavier heads, like the 3/4 ounce head, look where that line tie is.
And you're usually in deeper water.
Now you're fishing deeper water. Now the angle of the line it's very different. So the way, and then also it has to, if you put a different tail on this head, you know what I mean? Just like any jig head.
Yeah.
We made this jig head specifically for this tail. So when you are tracking in current and you are moving deep, you're getting it's going to track perfectly straight. Whereas, with, and then this, you're usually fishing in a way deeper situation than you would be fishing an 1/8 of an ounce head. So you could see this right here could be a 90-degree hook. And we put the eye, right here. It wouldn't make a difference if this was a 40, a 60, or a 90. Because at the end of the day, that eye is right there. Now, when you're looking at a smaller size jig head that is going to be being casted, and you're not going to have it as deep as another jig head, you're going to put that line tie a little bit more towards the front of the bait, based on the way that it balances and it swims. And it's more of a retrieve kind of cast when you're casting far and you don't have that much of an angle versus fishing deeper water, deeper structure. And you can see the same thing with our 3/4 ounce head versus our 2 ounce head, where you'll see that line tie go backwards because you're fishing a lot of very deep water, and that line tie has to balance out with the bait that you're dragging and how that swims in the current or no current. And all of it is relative. All of it are things that we, look at and try to pay attention to, make sure that we balance that bait out properly.
In very specific applications. And this jig head was very specifically designed for these swim baits, right? And so different plastics out there aren't going to always, it's not always going to be the same thing. So when you want to talk about so technical of an application, that it matches up with those swim baits. And so it's not always going to hold true in everything else that you would fish plastics wise. But the thing is, this is why I'm going to say stories and why people design and build origins of companies the way they do is extremely important. It's because stories matter, and people should ask questions more rather than just run their mouths and think that they know what's going on. And I don't mean that in a bad way. We all, our job is to question things in life. Like we should question things, but we also have to be willing to listen and understand. And That's the whole point of Jig Squad and why I wanted to have NLBN on. It's kind of like, I want these guys to be able to tell this. And how many times have you heard them be able to talk about this yet? For those of you that are regular Jig Squad people and you didn't know about NLBN, you never heard it. But for those of you that have been in the scene, look at this comment. This is my buddy that I call the car all the time.
And I just laughed to not to myself. You guys probably saw me laugh.
It's a big deal, guys. Stories matter, and people should listen. And it's a big thing to hear why different things are designed the way they are. And what a great thing. That little segment is a big deal, right? And here's the thing: everyone could talk about who is or isn't doing out there in the market. And as I said, guys, I don't work for NLBN. I'm just a guy that helps people tell their story. But the reality is, you're not going to get that in-depth type of description from other companies. You want to know why? Because they're just not doing it. And I'm not knocking them.
The thing about us too is we are fishermen.
Right.
When we're not doing nothing on the weekend or we get some free time, me and Jose, we're going fishing.
Yeah, we did. When we didn't own a bait company, we were out there 5-6 nights out of the week. We were, pro staffed by many other companies out there. We made a following on social media by catching trophy fish. We're trophy fish hunters more than anything. It's where we cut our teeth.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, Brandon said it best when we met a lot of the industry guys. A lot of these guys are people that like to go fishing. And we eat, sleep, and breathe it. So
we are fishermen.
Yeah, there's a big difference between us explaining it, and then we even see it. We see it from other companies. They make a jig head, and we're like,
why did they do this?
That's not going to swim right. That's not. I don't know who made that, but they just weren't paying attention, or they weren't really like testing it. All of these baits, this 5-inch bait, I mean, we fished it for over a year. I went back to the drawing board, even did a V2 tail after we initially released it, because one of our good friends that's watching in found one slight little hiccup, and we went back to the drawing board. I mean, I can't tell you how many tail variations we made. And there was a year of R&D, just us fish. We weren't even really trying to make a brand. We were making lures that we wanted to fish, and then our friends find out. And then we got them out there to some people. And we really saw that there was a demand out there for it, and we put everything on the line. We left our other careers, which we were fishing 5 nights out of the week. We were doing all right, to now, be able to get out maybe once or twice a week.
Yeah.
Now, so more than ever, but for the first 2 years, we locked ourselves in there. We worked, whatever. This is a story that everybody hears: 15, 18-hour days, 6-7 days a week.
Right.
Not making much money, making all the baits, doing everything. It was just it was an obsession, and we knew we had something, because at least down here, when you go fishing down in South Florida, you can't go to a bridge or a jetty, not run into somebody throwing one of our baits. And I can't tell you how many orders we get in the middle of the night, and I know what that's from. Somebody standing on the bridge, watching the guy next to him smoke him. He's doing something different, and he's like, dude, we get those 3 a.m., 2 a.m. orders, and we know what it's from. We laugh at each other because we know what it is.
It's hilarious. So Grant asked in chat, he goes, you suggest always creeping the bottom more for saltwater. It just depends, Grant. It's one of those things where, like, as an example, if you're fishing the little mullet, you're not on the bottom typically, right? And most of the time. But if you're throwing swim baits and sweeping bridges in the lights on a bridge for a snook, you want to be on the bottom, and that's the key. I mean, the guys that are on the beach, they're not on the bottom. They're just off the bottom, right? And if you're up further northeast, they're trying to be just off the bottom, So it just depends, but it definitely is a strategy that you have to know and use and be willing to lose jigs. So, like, if you reflect on that comment earlier about you're going to lose jigs, losing jigs is a good thing in the fishing game.
Yeah,
you should be. That means you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Respect.
Yeah. So my buddy on the fly up in Wisco, he made a great comment, and he ties for just on that, it's one of those things where the names don't come out, but he ties for a lot of big people.
Yep.
And he's real big. He goes, that's how the people that want the best of the best think.
Yep.
You know, they really want to hear these details. They want to process things that way, and they do, and they ask about it. But you guys keep in mind, for everyone in chat on replay, just understand that where's the last time you heard a conversation about swim baits like this? You haven't. I haven't heard any of our friends in the freshwater game have it, you know, and there's a lot of knowledgeable people out here, and I don't think I'm the one. But what I will say is you better believe that Jig Squad is going to provide the forum where we can have these conversations. And I don't know. It's a big deal. Guys, listen, what else did we not cover? Because we've just hit the hour and a half mark, so we should start wrapping up. But I had a blast, dude. I don't think there's anything we didn't cover.
It was really cool. It was our first live or even podcast. For that being said, everybody's hit us up. And I really, we've said this before, but we resonated with your channel because we're jig makers. And I saw the passion that you had for jigs.
Yep.
That specific market, and I wouldn't even call ourselves big, but we didn't get anywhere by trying to do the trends and what everybody else is doing. We like to make our own path, do specifically what makes us happy, what it is that we want as fishermen. And if you guys appreciate it, awesome. And if you don't, we're still going to be making it and fishing it. So it's made for us first before anything. None of the products that we have are a product that we're like, this would sell well.
Yep, none of them.
That's not even a thought in our mind, whether it's going to sell well or not. It's like,
sure,
do we need it? Are we going to use it? Does it exist? You know what I mean? That's what we're looking for. And those are like the shrimps you'll see with the heads. It's just something completely different. Nobody else is doing. And hopefully with everything, you know, coming down the line that we do, you know, you spoke about some things that are coming, shrimps. There's going to be multiple different sizes. You know, we're doing I wouldn't even call it a paddle tail version. It's a brand new tail that he made that we're looking to get patented before we bring it out to market or show it to anybody. But it is a kicking tail variation of this that is going to be pretty different than what most people have out there. It's going to be completely different. And once again, it was for a specific situation that we needed it for. Yeah. And that's where everything comes from. It's where's there a situation of a bait that we need that doesn't exist. And
that's awesome.
That's it. That is the number one metric. You know, and then if you guys like it, and so far we've had a lot of success, so we appreciate everybody that's been a part of that and everybody that's on here learning about the company for the first time. You know, we appreciate it. I think that you have a niche of anglers that are diehard.
Yep.
And those are the guys we're looking for. I'm not looking for the infomercial guy. I'm looking for the guys that are asking like the questions that your audience are asking and are really here, you know, to learn more about whether it's lure building or fishing or a new product. I just like the fanaticism behind jigs.
Yep.
And we appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, it was awesome, guys. I'm gonna, you know, later this year, we'll set something up and try and do something unique and maybe make some adjustments. Guys, everyone out there, go ahead.
I'd like to answer. My bad. I don't want to take you.
No. Which one?
Podcast ever.
No. Go
up with the NLBN name.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
No live bait needed.
Yeah,
it's. Please tell them the story. I've talked enough.
I gotta hear this. Go.
We used to post a lot of pictures on Instagram catching big fish and stuff, and
giants. We're separated ourselves.
You see people catching big 25, 30-pound snook, big tarpon, and they're using live bait. Well, we wanted to show them we could catch the same size fish, if not bigger, on all artificials. So we started using the hashtag no live bait needed.
That was our hashtag for years.
It just started with the hashtag.
That's so crazy.
That's how it all started, with the hashtag. And it was like a kind of, you know, thumbing your nose at the guys catching them with live bait. Because we did that too. Don't get it wrong. We did our live bait thing, and we have the rod, the 100-gallon tank that would put on a trailer and go up and down the state. We did all that too. But you know, with time and years, you get past that stage, and now you want to make it harder for yourself. And we found a niche. We found even other companies They were willing to sponsor us and pro staff us and all that good stuff, which really helped us along the way.
Sure.
To have those lures that we could lose on the rocks.
Right.
And part of the whole thing for us was just to kind of thumb our nose at the live bait crowd, and no live bait needed. It was just a hashtag. And, it's turned from a hashtag into this.
There's a lot to be said about that, because I've told people before on Jig Squad, I go, Jig Squad started out as a hashtag.
Yep.
And the reason I decided to start doing this is because I basically wanted to design jigs, and I started contacting people in the industry, and they're like, go scratch. And I'm like, you don't understand. I've been making jigs for this 30 years. And then I just said, you know what? I go, I'm not in. I said, I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to bring some of the greatest jig makers in the entire North America, and maybe in the world someday. And we're going to let people tell their story, and we're going to change the culture of how people process jigs in this world. And, if you don't make jigs, it doesn't matter. You like to fish them. And so that's what makes this whole experience unique. And I can't thank you guys enough. You guys know I'm a big fan of the company. I don't bring people on for any nonsensical, silly ass reasons. Everyone knows it's all because of the love of the game. And I can't thank you guys enough for coming on Jig Squad tonight. I love hearing the story. I'm sure a lot of people did as well. And we're going to have to do something again. Stay in chat, boys. When I end the show, we'll still be
your audience, man. Just
Thanks,
an
everybody.
awesome crowd of people, great questions, positivity, a lot of support there, and like open ears, people willing to kind of hear what we have to say. What a great crowd, man. You have an awesome audience, and we appreciate all of those guys. And I love to have a group that's open to learn. We all have. That's one thing. We could always do it better. That's my motto. Period. For everything that we do. No matter what we do, we could always do it better. So I appreciate, that kind of openness that your audience has to be able to hear it out. Cool. And we might say some things that they might not agree with, but everybody was super cool and great questions and a very high IQ audience. So that's something that we appreciate, and one of the reasons why we chose you as our first podcast, man.
I appreciate you, buddy. Lots more to come from NLBN, you guys. You guys know I love them. They don't come on the show unless I think highly of them. So I'm excited about what's to come in 2023 and beyond for NLBN. And this is Jig Squad, guys. And if you're new, check out some of the old shows. But peace. We're out of here.
That was awesome. That was dope.